Hello and welcome. My name is Casey and this is Holt Miniature Painting. In this video I'm going to try out some of the new Duncan Rhodes Too Thin coats. Picked up the green Triad today at my local game shop. So we got Wyvern Green, Emerald Green, and Ethereal Green. The nice dark to light cool greens, and what we're going to try them on is Lion L. Jonson, the Dark Angel Primarch. So what I'm going to do with this, he's been primed a dark gray and then added some white highlights with an ink, and then I went ahead and base coated his cloak in Screaming Skull by Citadel, James Workshop. So this color. So what I'm going to do to try out these paints is the cloak I'm going to use with the airbrush, and then the armor I'm going to brush it on with the paintbrush, and we're going to try out the paints. I just have these three to try out and we'll see how it goes, and then the rest of the model I'll be painting with Citadel colors. So let's get right to it. Get our mixing cup here. Now I haven't tried these paints yet. I just got them earlier today and shook them up and looked at them, but other than that I have not tried them. So let's start with the shade color, Wyvern Green, which from what I understand is very close to Caliban Green, which looking through the bottle is really close. It looks like it. So let's give it a good shake. Okay, we got our mixing cup. Oh, those bottles are, the plastic is kind of, doesn't make it the squeezing out easy. So we'll add our 1:1 thinner flow improver from Vallejo. About that much. Take an old brush, we'll stir it up. See how it flows down the cup. Looks pretty good to me. We're gonna use our Badger Patriot 105. And it goes on really good. I don't think I have it too thin. Nice coverage with the airbrush so far. Doesn't look like, oh, sorry about that. Yeah, looking really good. I may have thinned it a bit too much. Yeah, I got a little too heavy there. Really nice. Let's do the undercut here. Yeah, I may have thinned it a bit too much, but that's all right. Just build up the color here. Covers really well through the airbrush. Oops, I made a mistake. That color is not supposed to be there. Getting too excited, and I forgot that the bottom underneath is not supposed to be green. That's all right. I hear that it has a longer working time, so this actually works out really well. So I can just cover over that again with streaming straw. No biggie. Forgot the top of the cloak is green, the bottom underneath is that cream color. See if I can get in here. Not worrying if I get it on other areas, that's why I'm doing this first. Yeah, I have it too thin and I'm staying in one spot. Oops. That's not the paint, that's just me not thinning it properly. So we'll blow air on that and dry it off. The more I work with it, the better I'll get with the thinning. But hey, if you don't see me doing mistakes and know how to correct them, you won't know when that happens to you. A little too much there. I'm just blowing air to quickly dry it. Yeah. Just covering it more. Trying to get a good solid base coat here. Overall, I'm very impressed so far with the initial. This is just because I stayed in one spot too much, and because it's thin, it pooled up. So I gotta let that dry. I don't want to blast it with a lot of air, because I'll just blow all the liquid everywhere and create that spot. So we'll let that dry. Good. Also, this will show, over a light undercoat and a dark undercoat, how well it covers. Now, I'm not going to spray the armor with the airbrush. I'm going to use a regular brush on that. Which hopefully will not take forever to cover. Oh. Alright, so we'll let that dry. I clean out my brush and change the colors. We'll set him aside. And just flush out the old paint. And just take a paper towel, wipe that out. Now when you do that with a towel, don't blow through your airbrush. Flush it out some more to make sure you don't have any little fibers in there. And then you can flush it out. Then you can spray through. Just spraying through it, make sure it's clean. There's no more paint in there. Okay, and I'm going to use airbrush cleaner. What I used before that was just plain old water. So just putting some cleaner through it. And then now, we'll go ahead and clean the needle. And the reason why I'm going this deep of a clean is I'm switching to another airbrush with a smaller needle. So I'm not using this one anymore. So I want to make sure it's clean. Before I put it away. Alright, hold on 1 second while I switch airbrushes. So now we're going to go to my Badger Sotar 2020 with a 0.3 needle. The Badger Patriot had a 0.5. And I do all my base coats, primers with that one. And then for fine details, I use this one. So now I want to be more precise with my highlights on the folds. All right, so next color is emerald green. It actually looks darker than Warpstone Glow. Is that the right one? Yeah, that's the right one. It's darker than Warpstone Glow. We'll find out. Shake it up good. It's kind of hard to tell with the bottles too, because they're kind of cloudy, hazy plastic. Where these ones, that's a nice clear. No, that looks different. Because you got the plastic is darker. Yeah, it looks darker. I kind of like it, though. Compared to the Warpstone Glow, that's a bit of a jump. Yeah. Between the two. Alright, so we won't put as much in because I don't think I need a whole lot of thinner in here. Oh, that's a nice green. Yeah, that might be too thin, so let's add some more paint. Playing with color. Actually, I want it a little thinner. I forgot I'm using a smaller brush. smaller needle. All right, back and forth here. Because I had it a bit too thin before, now I'm being very cautious. But I'm using a different needle here. I'm putting it up against the side of the cup to see how it flows. And as you see, it's not really flowing down fast. I want it a little thinner, so it flows out of the airbrush easier. So I don't get any clogging. Alright, see, there it goes. Okay. I think that is just about right. We'll find out. I'll say this for, because this is the main green color, that's very, very nice. And looking at it, just put some on my finger here. That looks really close. I mean, considering in the paint cup, it's in a dark cup, and this is on a, you know, a lighter fingernail. Yeah. All right. Let's do it. So we got our line. And just gently adding the color here. Building it up. There's not a big jump in color, so I can, you know, contrast of color, I can really bring that up. That's a better consistency for the airbrush too. Yeah, that's looking nice. Hopefully it looks okay on the camera. The true test will come when I start using the brush too, so. Not everyone has a airbrush or uses an airbrush for work like this. They just, if they have one, for the most part, it's mainly just for priming, and that's what I got it to begin with. And then I started going from there. So yeah, we just slowly build up that color, following along the, oops, sorry about that, following along the ridge. I'm not getting any speckling or anything, or spattering with it, so that's really nice. I tend to have that issue with other paints, so that's a plus. I think the Nets color will really bring up the highlights on it. Also, when I add some shading, That'll brighten up the areas. All right, so far so good. We'll set him down. The emerald green. So here's the moot green. It's nice and dead on there. So far, I'm really I'm liking it. It's doing well with the airbrush. We'll see how that's a problem. I heard that some issues with the bottles in basically the first run of these, because the bottle itself, it's pretty hard to squeeze it, and then the tips, as I just showed you there, you get from shaking it, it kind of leaks. But I heard that with the second wave, they've fixed those issues. So it's not a deal breaker for me. So some people might have some issues with that, but it's not a deal breaker. So, oh, that's a nice color, nice and bright green, nice bright yellow green. All right. Let's go to this one. Same thing, pouring it in. This might be a bit too thin. The paints coming out of the dropper, they are thicker. But you do need to add a little bit of water to it just so it helps it to flow. All right, now here we go with emerald green. Oh, that's really nice. That's really nice. That came out really, really smooth. No real splatter, even because I'm doing this. And also, if you stay in one area, it starts to splatter out. That's what I was having issues before. But usually when I do that technique with the airbrush, no, see, I get spatters. That's because I had some paint on the tip. Getting overzealous here. Yeah, these are so nice with the airbrush. Nice, smooth. Reminds me of Pro Acrylic paints through the airbrush. I really like using those paints through the airbrush. These are nice. Very nice. Nice control there. Once I add some shading into it, that'll make it brighter. You know, you have to make something brighter, you need to have something darker next to it. So, but I'm able to do some really nice light bursts with it. Oh, so nice. Nice way to do a cloak. Okay. Very happy. And now we're going to do our our shadows. And with that, could add black into wyvern green, but yeah, why not? Where is it? There it is. Here's my wyvern green. Let's add some black into it. Good old abandoned black. So we'll just add a little bit more paint in that one. You don't need much. So abandoned black. This one hasn't been transferred to a dropper bottle yet. Just a little dab will do ya. A bit too much black. See, they do come out of the dropper nice. It's not like it all comes out, but I'm afraid that it will drip off of that. I mean, if it's really a problem, before you do it on your palette, just wipe it off. But yeah, that's kind of a waste of a paint. But I hear the new bottles are better, so they did fix that since the kit starter, so. So this gives us a nice dark black green. I want this a little thinner because I got the Citadel color in there. Those are thicker. And I just want to do a light, yeah, there we go. Almost like a glaze in the recesses. So just gradually build up that shadow. Alright, pour it in there. Nice dark black green. Alright, let's see here. So we're going to go right in between these two. And just gradually add color. And this comes with practice, you know, just like painting in general or anything. You just gotta learn control of pressing down and slowly pulling back to let that paint out. And you know what? What's great about it, if you make a mistake, you can just paint right over it. And to be honest, I'm actually doing really well for this on camera. looking at it straight down from my light, it's going to be dark right in there. And because this is such a deep fold, it's going to be darker further down. So you just get in closer. And all I'm doing is pressing down and just gently pulling back. Like so. And I'm just slowly building up the intensity of that dark right in there. So you can see the difference from here to here just by adding that dark black green. And I'll go over this with the brush and, you know, kind of fine tune the fold if need be, touch it up. The paints do have a longer working time, I've noticed, so bear that in mind. But it doesn't seem to be too bad. And I think that'll be real handy when I use the brush. And you can do this with a brush too, just like, you know, instead of me spraying it on there, using the brush to coat it with the dark color and then go in the raised areas with the lighter color, you know, build up the lighter colors and then come in with a brush with this dark color and just paint it right in there. I just use the airbrush, you know, for speed wise. But also just for a different way of doing something. That looks really nice. So let's just go ahead and keep going further down into the recesses with this color and build that up. I'm happy with that. All right, I'm very happy with that. That looks good. And then once I do, you know, the other colors too, I can come back and touch up, add more highlights if need be. But yeah, I would say that is a successful test with the airbrush for the thin coat, 2 thin coat paints. All right, now we're back. So we just went through and used the airbrush to paint up the cloak using Duncan Rhodes 2 thin coat paints. And now we're going to use them with a regular paintbrush and paint all the armor. And this has actually worked really well because there's some dark areas on this. So what I did as a recap, I went ahead and painted it, sprayed the whole thing a dark gray, and then went in with a white ink and sprayed up highlights on it. Don't pay attention to that because I mean that kind of gives me an idea where the highlights are, but I'm going to be covering that over with the paint. So that really doesn't make any difference. So, but I got my wet palette set up here. We'll grab a brush to show you where it is. It's kind of hard to, because of the white, it's throwing off my camera. But this is that black, abandoned black from Citadel Color, and the Wyvern green from Two Thin Coats. Some abandoned black, the Wyvern green, the emerald green, and then the ethereal green is the lighter one. So, seeing them on the palette, you do see a transition from dark to light for the cooler colors. And then I'm using the back of the bots to show where I need to add where the armor is. Okay. And then I just have a brush. I believe it's a number 2. This is from Micro Mart. They don't really have numbers on it, but it's a larger brush with a nice tip. So we'll go ahead and get our, am I getting that name right? Wyvern? Yeah, Wyvern green is the dark one. Is the shade color, or the darkest color. So we'll go ahead and apply that on there. So having that white on there over the dark kind of shows me how the coverage is over a dark base coat or dark undercoat and a lighter undercoat. And as you saw on the palette, the paint looks thick. You just add a little bit of water so it flows, and it covers really well. You know, it's going to need more than one coat, of course. It's not a one coat coverage. But with the thin paint or thinner paint, you just move your brush across the area a little quicker so you don't get any brush strokes, which I am not seeing with this. Oops, it helps if I keep it in the camera, I apologize. But yeah, it is going on really nice. Not seeing any visible brush strokes with it. Adjust my palette here, hold on a second, all right. Very nice. Yeah, it paints very smoothly. I'm very impressed with these right out of the gate. That's a nice smooth. And I'm not doing anything special. I'm just putting paint on here. You know, you don't want to have your brush, you don't want to have it like a whole lot of paint on there. That's just silly. So you just want enough on it. I do a little wipe on my hand. Excuse me. So I get a nice point. And yes, I'm sorry, I'm getting used to the camera setup again. Yeah, this goes on really nice. Usually I've had issues with base coats. You want to get them on there nice and smooth, and this does it. All right, I'm looking at my reference pictures here to see where the green armor is. Getting right in there. Yep, really nice. Let's get this leg underneath here. Try to arrange it so you can see me putting it on there. So yeah, you just do a quick coverage, quick once over. Don't keep working the area, because as it dries, you can actually pull up the paint and you'll get patchiness. However smooth the paint is, if you keep working in an area, you can pull up the paint. So I'm just doing a quick once over with it, and then start back from the top. But looking right in here. That's over a somewhat, dark undercoat, and that covered really well for one coat. Now it's dry. We'll go over with the second one, and the second coat, even better. Wow. Okay, I'm impressed. I actually said wow on the camera. Very cool. Oh, see there, I pulled up some of the paint. Oh, that's gold. And as I start picking up, I'm going to be picking up more of these paints. that's just it. These are nice. And I haven't even started the layering. I'm already quite impressed with it. I'll pick up more of the paints, and do more pieces with them. Very nice. I'll get right in here, just getting another coverage over it. Even over that dark primer, it's covering very well. It is darker because the undercoat is darker, but it's also a dark color. It's a dark green. So look at my reference here. Okay. He had more power armor showing than I thought. Very nice model, very cool model. I forgot this arm right here. I always liked the Dark Angels. I like the look of them and the background, the stories of them. Very cool. Get right in there. Now that is really nice. And you can see, even though I have the lighter colors on this, of the base coat down here, right here, that's the base, that was the base coat. That's a little bit lighter than this, and that's because this was on a lighter undercoat. Very cool. All right, so we'll set that down. All right, so we're going to go to our nuts color. Yeah, you can definitely see the difference. That's emerald green. All right, start down here at the foot. About halfway from what I already painted, moving towards the tip. The highlight. All right, so this right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start halfway of the piece, so mid shin or wherever that area is, about halfway down, and I'm just going to pull it to the edge. Take another brush, slightly damp. Slightly damp was the chosen word, but doesn't always help. Doesn't always work. All right. We're learning together. I had that a bit too wet. Dry off some of that. Yep, I screwed that up. I screwed that up with that other brush coming in, and it had too much paint on it, too much water on it. So that's a lesson, that you need to make sure that you're wiping off your brush of any excess water. All right, let's try that again. That's really nice that it has that longer working time, because I was able to clean that off real easy. That's a bonus. It's also got little metal studs right there that's catching the paint. Layer up on the foot. So we'll just pull this up to the top here of this leg. Another option, instead of starting from a base coat of wyvern green, start with a base coat of emerald green and shade down with that darker color. But yeah, oh geez, you can already, I'm looking at my camera picture, and you can already see that highlight is nice and smooth, somewhat. But I didn't do much. Oh, that's nice. Okay, I'm a happy camper here. We'll bring that to the highlight, bring that on the edge. So what I'm doing is just about halfway of the previous color, and then pulling it to the edge. And then on my next highlight, I'll go halfway of that. So like here, I went about halfway of the piece and went down, pulled the paint to the edge, and then from there, with my next color, I'll go halfway of that and pull it to the edge. And if I wanted to go even brighter, I can do another halfway down, or just do an edge highlight. But yeah, these layer really nice. I always had issues with brush strokes showing and trying to thin it to where it flows well. And I'm not really having that with this. This is really nice. And you're seeing this live. You know, I'm doing it right in front of you. I'm not, nothing real fancy. No mediums or anything, which I had to sometimes use. But definitely having a larger brush helps because it saves time and I don't have to keep returning to my palette. But yeah, it's easy to build up those colors. Really nice. I'm very happy with this. I missed a part on his shoulder, so I just base coated that. No, I forgot those areas back here. I still will be using my Citadel colors because I have enough of them, so I'll be using them up. And then as I pick up more of these, which I will, using them both. But I never got it. You know, that looks just so. You can still see the line there. That's not a big deal. I can go back with the base coat and go up with it. So, really nice. All right, let's just finish going through here with this color and then we'll go on to the next one. Real quick. Some areas that I forgot to base coat here underneath. So, yep, they work really well with the airbrush and the regular brush. So those are bonuses. Nice. They layer really well, which is a technique I always enjoyed. So we'll see how the other colors fit, you know, how the other colors work, especially there's always issues in a paint line with pale colors, reds, yellows, oranges, and then like your whites and your bone color, you know, your off whites. So, and how well flesh colors work. So we'll practice with that as soon as I get those. All right. So far, so good. So let's go ahead and fix that leg that I was working on. So we'll go back to the previous paint, the wyvern green. Wipe off some of the excess here on my finger. And we'll just go the opposite direction. Take a damp brush. Not a whole lot of water on it. We'll just kind of try blending right in there. So all I'm doing is I'm taking the brush, dipping it in the water, wiping it off so it's just slightly damp, and just pulling that, you know, going at the edge and pulling that paint up. Oh, that's nice. That worked out really well. All All right, let's clean our brush. And you know what? I'm going to go back and do another highlight with that emerald green. But with this one, I'm going then, down half a step. And it will make the area brighter. So make sure it's not too damp. Also, if I need to smooth out that blend, I can do a glaze. So this is the same color that I just did, and applying a second layer over that in a smaller area, the smaller area, I'm building up that brightness. Here. Yeah. So I'm just bringing it closer to the edge, and then I can do like a final edge highlight with that brighter tone. I almost said moot green, that's not the color. Ethereal green. I'm doing the typical showing how to paint the Space Marine by just painting the leg. And if I wanted it brighter, I can keep using this same color, going, closer and closer to the edge. I'm bringing up that highlight, making it brighter, because the layers, it builds up the brightness of it. Get right in here. Bracer. This is actually very enjoyable for painting a Space Marine. I've never really enjoyed painting Space Marines because I could never get the power armor to look right for me. But this has changed that. And what I can do is I can go in with that black green mitts and just go right in underneath and separate it. That'll add more depth to it. Yeah. So just going around and just brightening up the areas, just moving closer to the edges, bringing up that highlight. Making sure I get all the green that I needed. All right. Very nice. Okay, now I'm going to go to my shadow like I did on the cloak. I'm just using that same mitts that I used with the airbrush, so it's very thin. And then just going in between the plating. So what I'm doing is I built up the highlight. Now I'm going in and adding some shadows. And then I'm going to go back and add more highlights, and then if I need to, more shadows. So kind of a back and forth. So you don't want to bring up the brightest, and then go in and do your shadows. You want to go, you want to do that back and forth, and just gradually build up, because in that way you can see where you need more highlights and more shadows. You don't want to add highlights to everything, because underneath his arm here, back here, it's not going to be bright. It's actually going to be in shadow and dark. And if you want to know where your highlights are, the trick that I love to use is holding it straight up and having your lamps that are above you, coming straight down to show you where the bright points are. I have two lamps, one, basically at 10 and 2 o'clock above me. So this straight up would be, let's say, straight up would be 12 o'clock. I have one this way and then this way pointing down, and that's my light source. So that's how I figure out where my highlights are, by looking at it like this way, or just slightly turning it to see where the light would hit. Because light coming down, it's not going to be, straight down. You're going to have it a little more wider. Hopefully that makes sense. All right. Almost forgot what I was doing. But we're adding the shadows. And if I want darker shadows, I have the black on my palette that I can just go in. And I'm just, doing the same thing where I'm going from the center and half and moving it into the shadow. And then kind of doing almost a black lining in the sense, or lining, where I'm going in between and just separating the, here with the fingers. Between the bracer and the shoulder, the elbow pad. So here I'm taking it about halfway. You can see it underneath there, and just pulling it down into the shadow. I'm not doing an all over wash. I'm just doing a selective glazing into the shadows, basically. And I'm using the side of my brush, not so much the tip. I'm using the side because then I can get more paint coming out. Let's show that on my finger here. Instead of using the tip, because that's a line, I can get lines. That works too if you want to do something special in that, like hash marks. But it's the side of my brush, and I'm just gently pushing so the paint comes out, pulling down, and then swiping out. Like a almost like a J, that motion. So what you're doing is, when you lift up your brush, that's where the most paint is going to be. So with the highlights, like I was doing, I did it aside, did about halfway down, halfway on the area, moved towards the highlight, and then at the end I pull the brush up. So for shadows, for the darker colors, halfway, move towards the shadows and pull it up. And then so all the paint, more paint would be in that area. All right, so now I'm gonna take the ethereal green. I kind of want to, I don't want to do a big jump yet. I want to gradually build that up. So we'll just do a mix in between ethereal and emerald. So here's my emerald. That's the mix. And here from the airbrush, you see where the ethereal green, it's much whiter. So it's a nice in between. So it's roughly about a 1-to-1. And I just get closer to the edge. Here I'm kind of, I think I'll do the edge highlighting here. Yeah, oh, that's so cool. So just doing the tip, so you know, like I showed on my finger there, I want just thin lines, so I'm using the tip of the brush. But also what you can do on edges to get nice, crisp edge highlighting is use the side of your brush. I'll show it here on the knee pad here. And just slowly, and just drag it across, and you get that nice, crisp edge. So I have this highlight coming down where on the shin guard, it comes to a point, and it's kind of a point going straight down the feet, down his feet. So I'm just doing that line straight down, just like that. Same here on this plate. Line just like that. And then right up here, I'm just bringing it to the point. Right here underneath the lion's head, just a line right there. Because this is has a border, gold border right there, so I'm not worried. I don't want the highlight down there because I want that shadow, because this border raised area is casting shadow on it. Right there on that plate too. And even this, you know, right here, this works really well. And I'm trying to make it even pop more with that ethereal color by itself on the very tips of these highlights. But I'm also going to go back in with my abandoned black into the deep shadows, and that'll help contrast. We have that light to dark. Work around the shield to get his fingers here. And we'll get over here on these fingers. And when I'm done with the green, I'll go ahead and show that off. So for this video, I'm just showing how I painted the green and demonstrating, you know, learning Duncan's two thin coat paints. That's a long name. just going around and just adding that's highlight. So we're just bringing it closer to the edge. There we go. Oh, forgot this. They dry matte, a nice matte. It's almost like a semi satin matte or something. It's not a, straight up matte. Sometimes with paints that dry matte, what am I trying to say? Yeah, sometimes with the matte varnish in it or additive, the paints are hard to manipulate. This might have like a flow improver or something, but I don't care how it's made. It's made nicely and it works really well, and I'm pleased with them. So I'm happy with them. They did a good job on these. So I'm just doing that same thing where I'm going around and adding another highlight with the same color. That's why, as you can see, it's much better having a bigger brush, because I don't need to keep going back to my palette, because I have a nice sized belly of paint. It's a bit too far down, but that's all right, that I can keep taking from. Because I noticed it was down into the metal ferrule. You don't want paint to get down in there, because when it dries, it will make the bristles spread out. So I need to, when I'm done, give these a really good clean. It's because I'm using thin paints and it just runs down to it. That's where you want it. No farther than halfway down. All right, so let's add some highlights over here. Yep. Let's see if I can clean that up a bit. What I'll do is I'll just come back to my base coat, which is a darker color of that, and just move that in there and clean that up, that line up. The line wasn't quite straight, so I just went in with the previous color and then just kind of just moved it in and smoothed out that line. I'm missing this part right here. There we go. Yeah, right now he just looks like he's all green. He's the Green Power Ranger. All right, so now we'll go with ethereal green. I'm getting better at it, not having to keep looking. So this is my final edge highlight there. And just, it's closer to the end for those bright highlights. And if I want it even brighter, I could probably just come in and add a little bit of, have a bright, add yellow into that. not so much white because that'll desaturate it, but add a pale yellow into it, into the paint. To give it that extra spark, but you know what? It doesn't really need it. It's looking really good. And here I don't want too much brightness, and I can tone it down with a thin, oh, sorry. I can brighten it up, you know, make with a yellow glaze to make it really pop, really bright, or I can darken it more, or add it like a green glaze. Which I'd have to use before to really smooth out these blends, but this works really well. So, if you haven't guessed, I like these. I like these paints. They're good. I would recommend them. Yeah, kind of do what I did, where you just grab a few and just try them out, and then go from there. So I'm just going through and just doing a little bit of extra highlights. He's a special character, so he's gonna be a little bit brighter. So check my lighting, because I want more highlights, brighter highlights to the top, not so much down at the feet, because that helps bring it attention to his face, you know, to the center point. So right in here, the head and shoulders will be brighter than his feet, because reality, it would be like that. It'd be brighter up on top than it would be down at his feet. So let's go ahead and switch over to the back cloak and maybe add some highlights back here. Do I want to do that? Let's try it. Let's add some crisp highlights here on these folds. So I'm just doing that same thing where I'm using the tip and then the edge to get, you know, more sharp highlights here. I don't want it to be too close to the armor. I want it to be slightly different. All right, I'm happy with that. That works really well. Clean out the rest of that brush. All right, so that is my first initial impressions of the Duncan Rhodes Paint Academy Two Thin Coats Paints. That's a long name. The green Triad, the bright green Triad. I'm very impressed. Worked really well with the airbrush and worked extremely well with the brush. And I was able to do some really nice layering, blending that I love to do without a lot of hassle. So you'll definitely see me using more of these paints as I pick them up. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and paint the rest of the model. I'm not going to do that on video because this is a commission piece and I need to finish it up real quick. But overall, I'm very impressed, and the next time you'll see this, he'll be all painted up. So, thank you very much.